right. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today for the Lunch and Learn all about bone health. Um, the reason I wanted to talk about bones today and to get on an amazing expert, Melanie Flood, is because it's such an incredibly under-recognized problem for us ladies who are hitting the peri to postmenopausal years and beyond. So we have all this focus on breast cancer, but actually osteopenia and then osteoporosis, so the degeneration of our bones, and then fragility fractures are actually responsible for more problems, more hospital intakes, and even more deaths than the combination of deep vein thrombosis, of clots, of stroke, heart disease, and breast cancer combined. So we're talking about something that is incredibly important. And those of you who are in the membership know that Hatha Strong, which is number 3 on the Women's Wellbeing Pathway 123, is all about strengthening muscles to offset sarcopenia, strengthening bones, helping us with our balance and cross patterning for the brain. And of course, nutrition is such an amazingly important part of our holistic health and our well-being. But it's not that simple. It's not just drink more milk at all. So today I'm really delighted to introduce you to Melanie Flood. She is a registered nutritionist. She's a health coach. She's a genetic testing expert as well. She specializes in helping us get to the root cause of problems. And she's very passionate about midlife women's health, just like I am. And, together we're so keen to make sure that midlife women stay in the game, stay strong, stay healthy, so that they can impact the world in the way that they might be able to. Yeah. But we know our health is our wealth. So she has got a particular passion for bone health and to enable women to live a strong, healthy life. And she's also very kindly going to send everybody who's registered for this call her Show Your Bones Some Love ebook, which is excellent. So welcome, Melanie, and thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much indeed. And what a lovely introduction. That's really kind of you. No, I'm really excited to be here. I feel very passionate about midlife women's health, but particularly this subject is very close to my heart because my mum has a diagnosis of osteoporosis, and actually many of my one-to-one clients do. And it's although the more we can do earlier, the better, it is never too late. And I think that's why I'm so delighted to be here, because we can all be doing bits and pieces that can support our bones so that we can be strong and healthy going forward.
Amazing. So listen, if I just ask you a couple of questions, and then
Yep.
if we just sort of chat, and anyone, ladies, if you've got something that you want to ask as we proceed, please just take yourselves off mute or put a question in the chat box. We will try and have time for Q&A at the end as well, and you'll all get this recording. So obviously we're talking mainly about midlife health today. So as we come into perimenopause, as we go through into our postmenopausal years, what's actually happening hormonally that is causing this shift in our bone density?
Yeah, so as we start to have our fluctuating hormones in perimenopause, which this can cause a decline in initially our progesterone and then our estrogen. And what is happening with our bone tissue is it's actually a living organ. It's a living tissue. It's not an organ, a tissue. And we've got 2 types of cells in there. We've got osteoclasts, which actually break down our bone matrix, which we want to a certain extent so that we can then rebuild with osteoblasts to be stronger, to help to create this sort of protein matrix that's primarily made of collagen. And the reason that the decline in hormones really affect this is because estrogen reduces down that osteoclast function, so the breaking down of bone. So estrogen will help reduce that so that it's not happening too much. We want a little bit, but not too much. And then progesterone actually increases our osteoblast sort of differentiation, it's called. So they work in synergy to help keep our bones strong. So obviously, as our hormones start to decline, that process is worsened, and essentially the breakdown of bone is accelerating beyond the buildup of bone. So yeah, it's very much one of, I mean, we'll talk about risk factors, but one of the main risk factors is menopause in itself is due to the decline in our sex hormones.
Like estrogen. I mean, I guess estrogen is our regeneration.
Yes, our growth sort of
So
thing.
I've heard that 1 in 2 women after menopause, or within the 5 to 7 years in particular after menopause, that this is when we have this real decrease in our ability to regenerate the bones. But is that right? 1 in 2 women are going to end up with osteopenia and then potentially osteoporosis. What?
Yeah, like there's certainly within after menopause, there's a sort of 2 times greater mortality risk within the first year of having of getting a fragility fracture. 20% of bone loss occurs during the first 5 years of menopause. So in terms of like reaching peak bone mass, which is what we want, that happens by the time that we're 30, and then it sort of plateaus out, and then the decline starts post 40, which is obviously in line, generally speaking, with our hormones starting to decline as well. So
And
um
yeah, the muscle loss. So yeah, just
yeah,
that working with them too, together. Um,
yes, yeah.
just just so important. So what are the main risk factors? Tell me the main risk factors. Obviously, we can't go back and change the fact that probably we dieted too much in our 30s, or we drank too much alcohol, or we didn't do exercise or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
But what?
that's all
Yeah,
gone. That's done. You know,
what
we can't worry
what
about it,
risk
but it is.
factors going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it is worth sort of reflecting on what we got up to, I suppose, back in the day, because uh, you can then start to question whether you did indeed reach peak bone mass. I mean, it is probably one of the only diseases where having a low BMI or low body weight is more of a risk factor than being overweight. Because so any sort of if you've got a particularly small bone frame, if you've ever experienced periods of your life without your period, that is also a risk factor. If you've had any sort of eating disorders or disordered eating, which can often lead to not having a period, then they can it can just mean that you might not have reached sort of peak bone mass. But in terms of like sort of current things that you might want to be aware of, excess, particularly fizzy drinks. So their fizzy drinks are really high in phosphorus, and phosphorus competes with calcium, which is often associated with strong bones. And so high levels of fizzy drinks within the diet can actually really deplete your bone density. Certain medications that are quite common, for example, antacids, omeprazole or Rennies, or Gaviscon and such, and whilst they can be quite essential for maybe a short period of time, that can actually lead to less absorption within the gut of key minerals and key nutrients that we really need. And it's worth saying that in itself, so gut health is actually fundamental to having strong bones, and we'll talk a bit about that, won't we,
Yeah.
Linda? But people don't necessarily correlate their digestive system with having strong bones, but there is this really key correlation. And I mean, everyone says, the key to good health starts in the gut, and it is so true. What
So
else? Yeah, I mean, sorry.
about that, I was just thinking about the periods.
Yes.
And often when we're young, it's all about, we don't want to have our periods. We want to go on the pill and maybe try and not have
Yeah.
periods. Or I was just thinking, when you said that, when I was in my 20s, I was working in television, and I had a whole year of not having periods because I was working in a very high stress situation. I didn't even notice. And I
Yeah.
guess, although I was doing a lot of exercise, I'm quite a small boned person. So here's me postmenopausal now, and thinking, oh well, I've had a relatively good diet, and I do weights and stuff. So, but forgetting crucial bone creating years. And I'm sure a lot of us were on the pill. A lot of us were in very stressful situations, and
Yes.
you know, and we don't understand quite how incredibly important, you know, having an ovulation, getting that
Yeah.
progesterone from the ovulation, getting that estrogen in those crucial years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is a very difficult one. But yes, I would think I was on the oral contraceptive pill for about 10 years. So, you know, in during that key period of building your bones. And
Mm.
also, I think the other side of taking the pill is that it also does deplete your nutrients anyway. And so
Yeah.
you're possibly not getting enough of the things that you needed anyway.
We were of the generation. I mean, luckily, I thank goodness my mum, you know, talked me out of this, but you know, where fat was bad and everyone
Yeah,
eating, you know, low fat yogurts and salads, and there was the whole sort of less calories in, more exercise out, you know, bloody blah.
yeah,
So yeah, we've
yeah.
done ourselves a lot of
Yeah,
inadvertent.
and those fat soluble. So the fat, you need your fat to help to absorb your fat soluble nutrients, one of which is vitamin D. And vitamin D is absolutely fundamental with for bone health because it works so synergistically with calcium,
So
which we'll
actually,
talk about.
on the nutrient side of things, obviously calcium gets all the attention. I'd love you to talk about lactose intolerance, etc. But could you just guide us through what are the key nutrients that we should be focusing on for, you know, holistic bone health?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, calcium is really important. I mean, it is talked about the most, but it's not the only one. But the calcium does really support that bone structure and the hardness of our bones. But it also has a lot of other jobs, such as regulating our heart rhythm, transmitting our nerves, blood clotting, and so those are very essential things. And so if the body needs more calcium, it will take it from our bones. But so yeah, calcium is important, but it isn't just from dairy that we get calcium, and also a lot of people can't tolerate dairy, which can in turn actually lead to gut symptoms, be quite inflammatory, and actually worsen the whole process of supporting our bones. So yes, it's high in calcium is high in dairy products, but it is actually one of the most least absorbable forms of dairy. If you do want to consume dairy, I would always encourage people to have that full fat fermented dairy. People can sometimes tolerate a little bit better, or the sort of A2 dairy, which is actually from cows based from Guernsey and Jersey. They're better ones, but equally, calcium's quite high in things like sardines and salmon, particularly if you get by the tinned stuff with the small bones in it. That contains some good stuff. It's really high in sesame seeds, so actually, if you like tahini or hummus,
Love.
that's really lovely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and also lots of nuts and seeds are actually quite high in calcium. So I do still encourage you know, to get good amounts of calcium. One thing to note, if anyone's actually had a diagnosis of osteoporosis or osteopenia, the doctors will often give you calcium carbonate, but the rate at which is essentially chalk, and the ability to absorb is about 4%, which
Ooh,
is yeah, which is just terrible. So
okay.
people think they're getting it. They think, oh, right, ticking a box, getting my calcium. But the absorption is so limited that actually you're better off focusing on food sources and making sure your gut is optimal to be able to absorb those nutrients. But in terms of other nutrients, so vitamin D works really synergistically with calcium. And vitamin D is so important for all sorts of reasons. Oh, great,
Got my
fabulous.
vitamin C.
Yeah,
We've got to keep it.
lovely. Yeah, we definitely need it. I mean, the sun came out this week, which was so lovely to see, but it seems to have gone back in today.
But you can hear the rain on my roof.
Yes, yeah, but also the sun is never strong enough in the winter months anyway for us to actually absorb that vitamin D. But vitamin D helps to take to support that calcium going into our bones. But again, vitamin D, I don't know whether that product you've showed there, Linda, has got any vitamin K in, because it actually, the vitamin K helps to take your calcium into your bones rather than the arterial system.
Doesn't, but I did know that about Kay. So I didn't,
Yeah,
but that's interesting. But I have got
yeah.
my magnesium as well that I take.
Yeah, so magnesium is actually 60% of our bones are made up of magnesium, which not a lot.
60%.
Yeah, or magnesium is stored in the bones. Yeah. And it really helps with that bone mineralization. It also activates vitamin D to help the bone provide that rigidity and strength to the bone. So the magnesium, if you're supplementing calcium, you should also supplement magnesium for sure. Um,
Okay,
so
that's
yeah, and yeah, really important. I mean, magnesium is in foods, particularly in like dark green leafy veg, also in a few nuts and seeds, particularly almonds. But because our soils are quite depleted, we're not actually getting the amount of magnesium that we need. And magnesium is really depleted when we're stressed, and generally we're quite stressed today in this day and age. And so, yeah, it is something that I often do supplement, but for a variety of reasons. But for bone health, it is really important. I'm not quite sure how true this is, but apparently, if you crave dark chocolate, which is actually quite high in magnesium, it suggests that you are a little bit depleted in magnesium.
Oh, well, I do, and I eat. I got my. I always say if it's above 70%, it's basically medicine, so it doesn't count.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I
so
go
I'm
with that as well, mate.
lately my dark chocolate, and I do, and it's one of those things that the more you eat dark, the darker you go, the more addicted you get to the taste of dark chocolate, and then
Yes.
going back to sugary milk just
Yeah,
doesn't.
no, yeah, no, I don't like the milk stuff anymore.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I mean, dark chocolate is good. You want to make sure you're getting a good source of that as well, ideally, so that it's not got too much lead or cadmium in. It's a minefield out there.
yeah. Let's stick to, let's stick to the basics. Okay, simple foods, like simple foods that you're like, all right, if I could just say, try and get these things into your diet each week.
Yeah,
In your ebook, I looked through and I was like, collagen, you were saying bone broth. And I'm like, excellent, because I have a bone broth
yeah.
recipe, which I try and get people to do during the winter because it's so good for everything. But tell
Well,
us.
it is, and it's also so nourishing for the gut lining, which will help with the absorption of the nutrients. But yeah, collagen, it does 30 to 40%, I think, of the bone structure is collagen. And it provides this sort of flexible scaffold for minerals to actually attach to within the bone. And it gives the bone some strength, flexibility. So yeah, bone broth is a really lovely source of collagen. Also, you can get quite a lot of collagen from any slow cooked meats. Chicken skin, a lot of people don't eat the skin, but that's quite high in collagen. You can get it in fish skin, but again, maybe a little bit toxic with all the mercury and such. But also sardines with the bones and any sort of offal or organ meats. I know that's not such a sort of I don't know, people either love it or hate it. It's a bit like Marmite, but if you do enjoy that, it can an organic source can be really helpful.
I did try and have some liver with bacon at a pub recently, and it kind of tasted just like it did when I was a kid, and my mum used unfortunately. So we've got a couple of wishful thinking. It's definitely is health. Hang on. So do I and think it's true, but could it be wishful thinking? It's definitely a health food. Is that about Karen? Was that about liver, etc.? No.
Or maybe it's a dark chocolate.
Oh, dark chocolate. Yes, dark
No,
chocolate.
dark chocolate's good.
Yeah, dark chocolate's good. We love dark chocolate. Keep
Mm.
eating dark chocolate. Um, and oh yeah, let's go back to this in a moment, Helen, just asking about the Mirena coil, because of course, when you're not having periods on the Mirena coil, does it have the same effect as the pill, the contraceptive pill? The thing is, we do still produce some hormones through our adrenal glands, don't we?
Mm.
So important to be working on stress response. And you come to Release and Replenish on it, you do that sort of stuff on a regular basis, so that is good.
Mm.
What somebody else was just Caroline, we'll keep going for a moment if you don't mind, unless if you could just pop something in the chat and I can try and weave it in, that would be awesome.
Sorry,
Uh,
chat's not working for me
oh,
some
is it not?
reason.
Okay.
No.
Did you have something to ask about?
Yeah, it was just to clarity when you say magnesium, there's lots of different formats. So at some point, if you could clarify that and alternatives for bone broth and things. I don't eat meat as pescatarian. So yeah, the thought of that just turns my stomach.
Okay,
Yeah,
no, that's good.
yeah. And I think it might be worth, I mean, I'm not anti-vegetarianism at all, but there is a higher risk of bone fracture in vegetarians. There was some study, so you do want to be more mindful. Yeah, with collagen, you cannot get it from non-meat or non-fish sources, so you have to be able to eat fish or meat. And even if you supplement it, it will be derived from, it's either bovine or it is a marine one. So if you feel happy to having the marine one, you could supplement with a marine powder. I quite like the Bare Biology brand, and perhaps when I send on the details, I can send some links to that supplement, because that doesn't really interact with things. I don't tend to recommend supplements willy-nilly, because it does depend on what medications people are on, their current diet, and all the rest of it. But yeah, for they do a nice brand. So I get all my supplements, or for my clients, through a company called Natural Dispensary, and they only really stock very good quality stuff, and stuff I feel happy and confident recommending. But I've got a discount code, so I can share that as well.
That would be amazing. Thank you. So it is really interesting. And Caroline, this isn't the sort of forum to go too much to individual diets, etc. But I have been, the more I have learned about how much nutrition affects every single aspect of our, well, our future proofing, you know, our age proofing, it's changed my whole perspective on diet, etc. Without getting into detail too much, Melanie, I wonder if you could just make a comment on, are there periods of life, i.e. when you're in your pregnancy and postnatal, and potentially the sort of perimenopause, just to the immediate postmenopausal phase, where we do need to be more open-minded, if you like, of what nutrients we put into our bodies?
Yeah, I mean, I think for all sorts of reasons, but particularly for bone health, is prioritizing protein within the diet. And particularly at those stages that you mentioned, Linda. I mean, it's important all the time, but I think, you know, in terms of, if you eat meat, the meat will provide the full array of essential amino acids for our body. Whereas if you're vegetarian or vegan, you need to just be mindful of getting the different variety in your protein sources, whether that's, you know, your beans, your lentils, quinoa, chickpeas. They're all fantastic plant proteins, but you just need to make sure you mix it up within a day, having different sources. I mean, I am quite an advocate of fermented tofu and tempeh, which is a soy-based protein. That's really high. It's got good levels, and even as a meat eater, I do eat that, because I don't necessarily want to be eating meat all the time. But what's interesting about soy-based foods is they have a phytoestrogen effect on the body. So they lock into our estrogen receptors. So when our estrogen is low, it does give a sort of estrogenic effect. It's not going to replace a hormone, but it has a sort of adaptogenic nice effect on the body. And soy-based foods like the tempeh and tofu are a good source, but also flax seeds, lentils, chickpeas are also really lovely.
So talking about chickpeas, my husband went vegetarian in 2018. He had a heart attack, and you know,
Oh gosh.
I know, out of the blue, really fit guy, just done a marathon, and you know, we went vegetarian. And so I did for a while, but I found that increasing the legumes quickly caused unbelievable digestive problems for me. So I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about gut health, gut permeability of the gut, bloating, IBS, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the gut, as I said at the start, gut health is so important. And, you know, when we have good levels of estrogen, it does support having good gut microbiome, and actually a decline in estrogen can cause more dysbiosis. So that bloating and such, sometimes that can mean that there's something called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is where the bacteria has emigrated to your small intestine, which is where you're supposed to be absorbing your nutrients, away from the large intestine where it should be. So it can that can have an impact. Also, levels of an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase, a bit of a mouthful, can start to increase, and that actually causes a recirculating of estrogen, but in a negative way. And so, yes, things like leaky gut are very much more common, perimenopause, postmenopause. But we really want to support the gut. Sorry.
I was just thinking, early perimenopause, when we're losing that progesterone, how that is so linked with our gut. What is that?
The peristaltic movement.
Yes.
Yeah, and causing more constipation.
Yes. And then, of course, if ladies, my ladies, especially my pelvic floor ladies, I talk a lot about, if we're constipated, we're much more likely to A, suffer with stress incontinence and bladder instability, but B, reabsorb that estrogen. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, getting to be the estrogen.
And so, it depends on people's gut symptoms, but I do quite commonly do gut testing, stool testing, to look at how well you're digesting nutrients, how well you're absorbing, looking at any inflammatory markers, leaky gut, and looking at the gut microbiome and anything that might be contributing to that bloating or gas or reflux or whatever it is. I also do another test called the FIT test, which is a food inflammation test, and it tests actually 176 different foods that could be having an inflammatory effect on your body. So it's quite useful for people that are a bit not sure whether certain food groups are causing them problems, like say the lactose or the dairy or the gluten, which are quite common inflammatory foods. So it helps to sort of take the guesswork out, I guess. And actually that particular test looks at your leaky gut or things that would be aggravating it. And it's much better test than, so there's lots on the market, but there's a lot of false positives that can come up with these sort of quite basic tests, whereas this one tests two parts of the immune system. I won't go into the technicals, but it's I
know statistically, I was surprised. Remember in my third age course, seeing how incidence of IBS and other gut problems doubles compared to men once we hit perimenopause, and we lose that estrogen, and how interlinked it is with our gut microbiome. And so we do need to be so vigilant now with getting that variety of veggies in the diet, plant food, just really looking after the microbiome.
Yes, and all the different colours of the fruits and veggies provide different benefits to the body and help to contribute to that gut microbiome, particularly like the prebiotic foods like onions, garlics, leeks, cruciferous vegetables. They're all really helpful for supporting a diverse gut microbiome. And the fermented foods as well.
That it's everything. Like I say, my focus is always on constipation, etc., because of the pelvic floor. But and then you link in, hang on a second, what's going on in your gut biome also affects your stress levels, etc. And then also now we're going, and bones. So
well, and I mean that's why the principles have far-reaching effects for all parts of your body systems, and help that having that sort of longevity, health span. It's so important to have good diverse diet for all sorts of different reasons. But going back to the constipation, I mean it is often one of the first things I work with clients on, because if you're constipated, you're not, you could start introducing all these foods, but if you're not getting everything out, then toxins are recirculating, hormones are recirculating. So it's really important to have regular bowel movements. And what people think is normal often isn't. So normal is going to the toilet at least once a day, at least.
Mm. Yeah, which for a lot of people that's a shock. There's like, oh, but I go every 3 or 4 days type of thing, and it's like,
Yeah,
okay, let's focus on that. To
yeah,
it's
yeah,
and actually talking about stress, because obviously so much of our gut is holding our stress. And I always say to women, yes, you might feel it here around the jaw and the neck and the shoulders. It'll be presenting in your pelvic bowl, your gut, your pelvic floor muscles. So can you just touch on how stress, and I always do talk about being the frog in the boiling water. So often we're so used to working and living at such a level of constant stress, we don't
yeah,
actually realize we're stressed. We're not yet at total burnout, so we're just keep my head above
yeah.
water. And what is that doing to
Well, essentially, too much cortisol circulating actually impairs that calcium absorption. So it has a direct impact on our bone health, because we really want to be able to absorb that calcium to support strong bones. And like you say, we cannot avoid stress in our day-to-day living, but it's finding things that are going to help to manage that stress. And that's different for different people. But things like deep breathing exercise, meditation, exercise, being in nature, gardening, reading, whatever it is for you, but also prioritizing sleep, because sleep is when your body repairs, and helps to bring that stress response right down. So actually, alongside the constipation, one of the other things I often work on first with clients is supporting good sleep, because it has such far-reaching effects on everything else.
It does, yeah. So number one on my pathway, even though, like I said, I'm known for my pelvic floor work, and that's where I've built up, my methodology and things. But number one on the pathway is a class I call Release and Replenish, because it's all about getting your adrenals working as well as possible, getting us out of that constant sympathetic, go state, and winding down using
Yeah,
movement into a state where we are in deep states of relaxation and replenishment. And
yeah,
being able to have mastery over your own nervous system, I think, is one of the most powerful things we can learn in midlife to serve us for the rest of our lives. So
absolutely.
yeah, I feel really strongly about it has changed my life, literally. I reckon in the 30 years or more that I've been practicing yoga, the most important thing is learning breath work, diaphragmatic breathing. Almost more than anything, is literally the cornerstone of my life. And I've had a lot of very stressful things happen in my life, and if I didn't have that anchor, golly. And I've seen in clients, one-to-one clients, the change in people once they start to have mastery over their nervous system and be able to just drop into deep states of relaxation. Is everything else kind of goes and you actually then are able to eat those powerful foods and
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, I think it's one of the hardest things to do, actually. So I do appreciate that. People want to be told a list of things that they can do to support their food or diet, and that's easier than actually saying to somebody, right, you need to do some breath work here. I don't know. It's again, quite a hard area. And what was the other thing? Yeah, if you're not,
of it, like active rest.
yeah, active
Do
rest,
that,
yeah.
put it in my schedule. Active rest time.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But I think in our society where we do, go, it's like seen as if like, oh gosh, I'm being lazy or I'm not being productive, da da da. But the other thing is that's worth noting that impacts your bones is that unless your body is in a rest and digest state when we eat, you're again not going to be absorbing the nutrients. So, if you're sat at your desk eating your food whilst dealing with a stressful work email, that's just no good because your cortisol's going round and you're not going to be absorbing the nutrients.
So that's so important. And I'm just thinking about, where you say, oh, Mediterranean diet. Well, I guess it's the
Yeah.
Mediterranean lifestyle as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Down, enjoying food, being in that joy state where we have the oxytocin and the endorphins and
Yeah.
our cortisol levels are dropping down, you know, and, you know, I always in my classes talk about, we do a lot of, I call it fascia rinsing. So I describe, you know, if you've been out as a Stone Age hunter-gatherer for the day, and you're in that sympathetic state because you know, you're looking for danger, danger, danger. You get back at the end of the day after the hunt or after the gathering, and before you actually eat around the fire, you are, you know, singing about the day, you are doing rhythmic drumming, dancing, shaking, you know, jumping. If you look at tribal people, they are literally taking their nervous systems down into doing vagus nerve activation practices to get into that parasympathetic state so that they can then digest the food and sleep. So doing that, just doing the stuff
I know,
that
but
manage
it's hard. But again, as well, like prepping your own food rather than, I don't know, a takeaway or whatever, where it just arrives and you eat it. You know, your body isn't prepared. Like it's had no signs, like smelling your food, like actually cutting up the veggies and everything. It gets your body ready for digestion. Don't get me wrong, you know, I have a takeaway every now and again. It's not like I never or go out to eat and everything. You've got to be realistic. And I think with all these things, I will always encourage my clients to follow a sort of 80%. So 80% of the time, if you're doing all the good stuff, that is a good baseline. And then, you know, you've got time 20% to go a bit off the rails every now and again and live life.
And we went, you know, so I think both of us, our whole thing is that we are not little men, you know, the female physique, our physiology is so, and our you know, everything about us is so different, and yet we are squeezing ourselves into a very a world that is made by men for men's physiology. And actually, by being in the whole, I call it the busy equals worthy paradigm, where it is what we produce, how hard we produce, what money we produce, what our pension plan is like, what our house is like, what school our kids go to, that is kind of success. And yet, if that means you're living off takeaway food and your digestion's all up the place and you're having to spend a fortune on supplements because you're not, you know, you have no idea how to get that into, you know, all of those things, we've got it wrong, hey, for us as well.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, so many actually of, like, even relating to nutrition, a lot of the studies are on men, and things like fasting and such like, it's all based on men, and we are very different species.
Yeah, God, we could do a whole thing on fasting, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about exercise, how that feeds into bones, and obviously nutrition to fuel exercise. What are your
Well, I'm such an advocate of exercise, and actually relating back to my mum, who I mentioned at the start, you know, she had a DEXA scan, and one of the main things she had done is a lot of strength training, and her DEXA scan had improved. That's for those that don't know, a DEXA scan will test your bone density and whether you have got osteopenia or osteoporosis, and it's often done after you've had a fracture if you're of a certain age. But yes, with regards to movement, it is so important, but there's sort of three factors to take into account with the exercise that you're doing. You want to account for how hard the muscles pull on the bones, because the more they do, the better for the bones. How much the activity forces your body to work against gravity, and does the activity involve impact? So if we look at some common sort of exercise activities, running, cycling, swimming and walking, I mean, whilst I do a lot of swimming and a lot of walking, they're not going to be supporting my bones, sadly. Cycling to some extent, but really actually running because of the impact. But obviously not everyone wants to do running, and potentially if you've had a diagnosis, it might not actually be safe for you to do that. And things like golf, you know, like bending and twisting might be unsafe on your spine if you've had a diagnosis relating to your spine. But all that sort of power yoga that I'm sure you cover, Linda, and the strength training.
So very much working on, you know, the key stabilizing muscles. I have this Hatha Strong class, which is working on the multifidi, the muscles around the spine, the core muscles. So yeah, literally everything I teach is designed to strengthen bones and strengthen those key muscles. And also the trouble is with running, if your posture's not good, if you've got real tension patterns in your body, if you're not breathing well, if you're shallow breathing, and if you've had vaginal births in particular, once we lose that estrogen in midlife, we're so much more likely, if we don't have the foundations in place, to cause ourselves prolapse, knee problems, to fall if we've got in mobility around the ankle joints and things. So I think I try in my classes to get the stress reduction in there, to get the pelvic floor and diaphragmatic coordination and the alignment of the posture in there, and then start to do the future proofing of your muscles and bones with the Hatha Strong, in order for women to then be able to go to the gym and do weights safely, start running more, doing the things which are going to carry on that trajectory of layering on that future proofing.
No, definitely. Yeah, like when I say running, it's definitely not for everyone, but it does tick those three factors I was talking about. But balance is so important, and just any sort of resistance training is incredibly helpful. And I guess that's something that my mum has done, and it has actually benefited her, and her score on the DEXA scan had improved. So, which is
never
great.
too late, is it? That's
no.
Never too late. And those of you who don't know me, who are listening to this, I have the bathroombootcamp.com, which is just literally balances, there's squats and things. There are some balance and bone strengthening things in there, and you just literally tack them onto a bathroom break. So I'm like you, Melanie, I'm really into little and often, give people things that are accessible, easy to put into their day, to make this trajectory, this pathway doable, as opposed to, oh my God, it's all just far too much. I'm just going to sit and have a cup of tea and a biscuit and
it's too overwhelming, isn't it? You can't do everything.
So as we start to wrap up here, could you tell me what your three, say, or you can add more if you want to, but your main daily habits are that you do and that you advise to clients, so that we can do that future proofing for the next 20-30 years, so that we're on that good
the first would be to eat enough protein, to have 3 meals a day where you're eating protein, particularly at breakfast. It's so important.
Give me a perfect breakfast. Give me a breakfast that we can all just scribble down and go, right, tomorrow I'm going to do that.
Okay. Well, it depends whether you want savoury or not. But if you're going for a savoury breakfast, like 3 scrambled eggs or 3 egg omelette, and then some veggies, dark green leafy veg on the side. You could add in some leeks or onions to give you some prebiotics. But like a handful of spinach or a handful of rocket on the side is nice. If you don't like that sort of savoury breakfast, then having what did I have this morning? I had a mix of kiwi fruit and pear. Kiwi is really good as well for the digestive system. I had a couple of spoonfuls of flaxseed, a couple of spoonfuls of hemp, and then I've got this mixed muesli type of thing that I just put together, which is just loads of nuts and seeds. With a spoonful of coconut yogurt. What else did I put in it? A bit of nut butter. Quite a lot going on.
Yeah. We call it, so I put together this, we call it the healthy habit tracker in women's wellbeing.
Oh yeah.
Started this year with it, and we had a little bit of brainstorm on breakfast ideas, and one of them was similar to that, and absolutely the eggs and veg, and just trying to whack on your coriander and your parsley and your
all the herbs. I should have mentioned that.
Put it all on, and tahini on top of everything. get in the fantastic tahini. So perfect. Okay, tell me another.
So the protein would be the first thing. Sort of a similar thing, I guess, would be to be eating enough. Like so many women that I see, and this correlates with having a healthy BMI, but which I know is a bit of a crude measurement, but so many women are not eating enough of the, and and it can be a case of that perhaps not eating the right things, but you know, eating enough and getting that variety in. So what I've just described, you know, I had a massive bowl of stuff. You know, and that all the different things were providing different nutrients. So just make sure you're eating enough, because if you have 3 good meals, you're less likely to feel like the biscuits and the snacks in between the meals, or the fizzy drink and everything.
I think, you know, so many of us are like still locked into that calorie deficit in, as opposed to more calories out. Like, you know, in the 1 or 2 hours we have off a week, do a high powered gym session, and you know, eat a lettuce, leaf and tomato afterwards. So can you just once and for all debunk the fat is bad myth and just
like absolutely, I mean, it's the sugars really that the issue. So no, lots of healthy fats, and actually correlating with that is lift heavy, like do the resistance training, and push yourself to lift heavy, but in order to make sure your workouts are effective, you may need a little something before, and you should definitely eat a high protein meal within half an hour to an hour of finishing your workout in an ideal world. So yeah. I mean, one thing I haven't mentioned that I do just want to mention is, as a sort of extra fourth thing on my list. So there was the protein, eating enough, eating a variety of enough food, and then doing resistance training, but trying to lift heavy, not just doing like loads of dumbbell, you know, easy ones. You know, you need to lift heavy to really put the stuff to develop the muscle and support the bones. And also what you're describing with the yoga sounds fantastic. But the other thing, just because it's more of an unusual thing to just mention, is the genetic testing that I do. So that would look at things like your vitamin D receptors. It does also look at estrogen receptors, and it looks at things like calcium, your ability to tolerate lactose, gluten, magnesium. It's very informative, and it's very much giving you the data to know what you need to focus on, whether, like, you know, calcium is at such an issue from a genetic perspective, maybe it's something else. But vitamin D receptors quite often can be quite down regulated, and so you need to have higher blood levels of vitamin D than perhaps is like the NHS, for example. The doctor might say, oh yeah, you're in range, but maybe that's not your range. You need higher levels. So you know, working with a professional, whether it's myself or somebody else, is just so important to get that information to support yourself for that longer term health.
And talking about genetic testing, I'm just looking at Fariha's comment in the chat here. She's got South Asian, you know, darker skin, and she's talking about it being harder, obviously, to get enough vitamin D in through sunlight. But also there's stats around, is it calcium absorption, or is it lactose intolerance for different cultures, different people from different genetic backgrounds.
So particularly Southeast Asians find it difficult to tolerate lactose. And actually, I think even back in the day, sort of Caucasians also struggled, but we've genetically adapted to be able to tolerate it better. But historically, none of us could. And so there's been adaptations to be able to tolerate it, but still lots of people, it's quite an inflammatory food for a lot of people.
Yes, I'm quite proud of the fact that A2 milk, that was all developed in New Zealand. That was
Oh yes, of course, yes. That's to do with the casein, which is the proteins in dairy. So the A2 is much better tolerated as well. So yeah.
And Helen's asking, is it possible to manage our hormone levels enough through how we live as opposed to turning to HRT? Okay, so that's a good one. So Helen's just asking our opinion on HRT at this level, at this stage of thing, or is it enough to do, you know, getting enough rest, doing the strengthening work, eating well, etc., for as far as bone health is concerned?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know actual statistics on it, if I'm honest. I mean, from an NHS perspective, one of the first lines of treatment for osteoporosis, if you're still within the sort of age range of being able to take HRT, then they would suggest HRT. But there's many women out there that either they don't want to, they don't agree with it, or they can't take it due to family history of things. In which case you've just got to work harder, I think, at some of these suggestions. And I mean, in my ebook, there is lots of suggestions and lots of recipes. And also, genetically, you may not be at such a risk for low bone density. It's so individual. I wouldn't like to say yes or no.
I'll also chip in there that so I mean I do take body identical, so transdermal through the skin, estrogen and micronized progesterone. So I am on HRT myself, and I'm a big advocate for vaginal estrogen, even if you're not on systemic HRT, because of the impact of pelvic floor dysfunction issues for women as we age. But I think I see a lot of people who are going, right, I'm on HRT, great, and then they still carry on drinking, eating crap food, living like they're 20. And I'm like, well, no. I mean, yes, there might be a period where you take it, using estrogen in order to get those extra years of looking after your bones or building your bone strength, if you're focused just on the bone side of things. But and yes, I think for some women, and I was definitely one of those, getting onto HRT can get your head above the parapet if you're having a really shit time with perimenopause, in order to then start putting all the other pieces in place if you haven't already. But it's a myth to think that by just taking HRT you can get away with still living a very high stress life, a life where you're not eating well, not doing exercise, etc. Would you?
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. It's not like some magic bullet that you can take it and then not do any of the other stuff. Yeah, they work really synergistically if you can take it. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, listen, Mel, that has just been so informative. And I know that your ebook has got all of this information and more in it, so that'll be going out to everybody. So key takeaways. Well, absolutely, the strong bones aren't just built on one thing of just taking calcium. It's very much a combination of getting those nutrients, the good gut health, managing your stress levels, and getting in that right exercise combination for you as well. And which is, absolutely what I try and support in my membership. And I'd love us to try and do some more things together, because your approach, your whole outlook on supporting women's health, how unique we are, is, I think, it's brilliant. So if you could just let us know how, if we wanted to work closer with you, how we could do that would be amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so I work, my main work is primarily one-to-one programs where you can do testing, but don't let that put you off. If you don't want to do testing, we can do deep dives into your diet, looking at supplements, lifestyle medicine that can support you. I generally work with clients over a 12-week period. And women are so bad at investing in themselves, but actually we're so fundamental, we're pinnacle to our families and often our workplaces. So don't hesitate to get in touch. I offer a complimentary call if you're interested in any doing a deeper dive into your health, and just to find out a bit more about myself, and I can find out more about you and whether I'm the right person to support you. So that's and perhaps when I think in my ebook there's details of how to contact me or book in for a complimentary call. But I am actually running a group program, so about sort of 3 times a year I run a 14-day online group program, and it's called a Spring Reset. It's just a nice way for people to find out more about working with me and have a bit of a reset. Sometimes that's enough for people. And I have got a program starting on Monday. So if you were keen to sign up, I would encourage you to sign up. as soon as possible so that you can get all the recipes and get started so you can hit the ground running on Monday. But it's a lovely, I don't have loads, it's probably about 10 doing the program, so it's a nice little small group, and we keep each other accountable, and we're sort of each other's cheerleaders throughout the 14 days. So if you're
so
interested,
even if maybe people aren't, because that's coming up quite soon,
yes,
but maybe we could try and coordinate something for after you've done this one. So, you
yes,
reset in my tracker or something like that. We can
yeah,
do
that
something
sounds great.
together, possibly. But
Yeah,
I'll send, we'll get details of all of those things and your wellbeing call to
yeah,
send out to people.
lovely. Yeah.
So thank you so much. I'm going to wrap it the main part here. If you don't mind staying on for if there's any Q&A, that would be amazing. But for those of you who have to go, thank you for joining this Lunch and Learn. It's always so good to get this expertise that is out there to help us. As extraordinary women, as you said, Melanie, we are the linchpin of our families, and we're so important in the community. And I believe that it is the most selfless thing that we can do to put ourselves on the list, hopefully at the top of the list. Put it on your own oxygen mask first, because when we burn out, when we fail, when we are unhealthy, everybody else does suffer. And the big thing is we want to be a role model for our kids. We want them to see us looking after our own health, valuing this vessel, so that they, by osmosis, end up doing that themselves. So yeah, I know we sing from the same hymn sheet on that front. Thank you
Yeah,
so much,
absolutely.
Melanie. Lots of thank yous there.
Thanks everyone. Yeah, any questions then just reach out to me, but I'll send the stuff, well, send it over via Linda. But yeah, if anyone wants to just hang on and ask any questions, very happy to answer.
Amazing. I'm just going to stop recording.